Good afternoon, and welcome to Lunch in the Know Live. This is Beverly Robertson, and I am president of the Greater Memphis Chamber. And I would certainly like to welcome you here this afternoon for our Lunch in the Know series. We are proud to have you join us this afternoon, and we think you are in for a tremendous session. Lunch in the Know, many of you may not know, that it's been a long-standing series for the Small Business Council, and we're excited that this is one of the first events that we're bringing back since COVID-19. Now, Lunch in the Know was traditionally presented about 6 times a year in person. We'll be now holding it twice a week. That's Tuesdays and Thursdays for the next few weeks online. We'll be recording it so that if you miss the live version, you'll be able to watch it later on our website, memphischamber.com. We hope this is the beginning of getting some normalcy back to our new routine. But before I go any further, I just wanted to make sure that we spend a couple of minutes on COVID-19 related activity so you know what the Chamber is offering and what we've been doing on behalf of the Memphis business community. I hope you've had a chance to visit our COVID-19 resource page on the website, in addition to attending some of the seminars. We have an open 901 business directory where we're trying to list all Memphis area businesses that are currently open. Included in this listing is an interactive map. So you've not registered your business, please do so immediately following our event today. We promote these businesses on all our social media channels. Additionally, we're conducting a survey once a week of all Memphis businesses, trying to identify their needs and concerns and help them to address those concerns. This information is being used to not only provide direction to the Chamber, but it's being used by the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis and the city of Memphis, and to also inform our local media. Your responses are extremely critical. And finally, we're in the process of pulling members of the business community together to figure out how Memphis will reopen responsibly better than ever before. We're doing a whole lot more, but let me just say this. Our small business community is critically important to our whole community's success. In fact, many of you may know that small business is the engine that drives America and is the engine that also drives our local community. Now, our Small Business Council would certainly not be possible without the commitment and leadership of Susan Stevenson and the Independent Bank team. Susan, I know you and your team have been working around the clock to assist our small business members, and we thank you so much for your commitment. Susan, I'm going to turn it over to you right now.
Thank you so much, Beverly. I appreciate it. And I want to just say welcome to everyone. I'm excited that we have a moment to share with each other over new technology. It's a great way for us to get together, and we're pleased to have a chance to do that. As Beverly said, more than ever before, we recognize that small business is the true heartbeat of our community, of our economy across this country. And we are very proud to sponsor the Small Business Council at Independent Bank. We want to just make sure that you all know that we are here to serve you. We are considered an essential organization, so our lobbies may not be open, but we're available by appointment, and our drive-thrus are open every day from 7:30 in the morning until 6 o'clock in the evening. We also want to say to all of you that we are very proud to have opportunities to help you navigate these incredible times. And we want to say, we hope we can add value to you in this process. So please call on us if you need us. I'm thrilled to be hearing Marshall talk about how we can move from defense to offense. In times of disruption, that is something that we all need to be reminded of. So we appreciate you joining us today. We look forward to connecting with you again soon. We really look forward to the time when we're all together again in person. And in the meantime, we stay safe and stay well. And thank you for the privilege of being a part of the Small Business Council. And to our chamber team, I want to just say we've had a chance to take advantage of many of the resources that have been provided I know your team is working around the clock, Beverly. I know that that's something that we owe a huge debt of gratitude from the entire community for everything you're doing. So many thanks. And we're delighted to be joining each other on Zoom and look forward to seeing each other in person. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. I'd like to thank Waddell and Associates for allowing us to use their Zoom platform, and the incredibly talented Lainey Oberg, who you won't see on the screen, but just know she's behind the scenes handling her business with a headset on and making sure that we have a great event today. Thank you so much, Lainey. When we started talking about bringing back Lunch in the Know, our chair of the Chairman's Circle and board member, Daphne Large, happened to be talking about her business coach, Marshall Martin, and the incredible information he was sharing with her to guide her in the decisions she was making for her business during this time. Daphne asked Marshall to be with us today. Now to introduce Marshall, I will turn it over to Miss Daphne Large.
Well, thank you, Beverly. It's certainly my pleasure to introduce Marshall Martin with PETRA Coach. Marshall has such an impressive resume. He's over 20 years of senior leadership experience at the C-level, driving sales and growth and exit strategies. And he's helped startups to he's helped multi-billion-dollar businesses in healthcare, technology, transportation, manufacturing. And I know Marshall personally because he's helped me in my business, particularly last year when we had a very large acquisition that nearly doubled the size of our business. And I was so glad that he was by my side to help me through that. He's really become a trusted advisor and friend. And when he's not helping a business grow, he's out there challenging his own comfort zone. He's an award-winning competitor in endurance sports, particularly in Tennessee for cycling and triathlon events. And he's an all-world and all-American Ironman triathlete. And what that says about him is he likes to win, but really he likes to help you win. And what I love about Marshall is that he doesn't tell you what you want to hear, but he will always tell you what you need to hear. And that is how you win, and that is how you and your business improve. And so thank you, Marshall, for that. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Marshall and say thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Daphne, and also thank you, Beverly, Amy, Susan, and the rest of the team that made this possible today. So I'm going to share my screen. Give me just a moment here. Let's see if can you see my presentation, Lainey, or someone give me a thumbs up? Presentation up, gang?
You are up.
Okay, presentation's up and everyone can hear it, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, anyway, thank you all that make this possible. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I happen to know Daphne. Of course, we've developed a friendship along the way. Also worked with Lainey and her team at Waddell & Associates. And so what I'd like to accomplish today is just taking you through a journey as we talk about moving from defense to offense in this time of disruption. We've all gone through substantial changes over the last several weeks. And in those early days of March, I mean, we immediately went into fear, panic, and disruption in our lives. And so we quickly went to defense until we could get things settled. And many of you have moved through that quickly onto stabilization. But what I want to push you today is give you some tactics and some ideas and some tools that start to move you towards that reset and then offense. Most people will be coming back sooner than later. Susan, I know you want to get started back, as does everyone else. So with that being said, let's get going. And should we have questions along the way, just interrupt me with questions. But Daphne said it best. I'm a coach with PETRA Coach. What do? We work with companies from startups all the way to multi-billion-dollar companies, working with them, implementing the Rockefeller habits and planning and strategy sessions in a way that helps guide them down the path, basically in the areas of people, strategy, execution, and cash. We're the kind of people that we've sat in your seats before. We're not going to tell you what you want to hear. We're going to tell you what you need to hear. But we're going to be right there beside you all along the way. So as Daphne said, and when I think back about the last 32 years of racing or the last 32 years in business, and it gets to this time of crisis, I woke up a couple of days ago and thought, you know what? I've been waiting my whole life for the opportunity to share the mindset of what it takes. And I just put on the slide, a journey can be a grind, and are you in it for the long haul? Because it's those who are in it for the long haul that are going to reinvent themselves during these times that are those who are going to come out on top on the back end. So let's get beyond defense stability. Let's start thinking reset. Let's start thinking offense. We will not return to normal. We hear this overused term of new normal, but we know things will not be the same. So if you're wishing for things to be the same, I've got to break you of that mindset so we can think about how things are going to be better. So today, if you're on video, certainly make yourself available on video, even if you're still sitting in your PJs at home, or maybe you put a button collar shirt on so it looked like you were dressed for work. It's also interactive. I'm going to ask Lainey or Amy to help me with questions. And then make sure at a minimum when we walk away today that you've taken something from this session, either today or you follow up after today, because we'll make the tools available, we'll make the videos available, we'll have our contact information available so that you can walk away with something that makes you better as a result of the time we spend together. So, as I said, pure and direct, tough times, tough shit. We got to get going. We got to snap out of what we're doing. We got to move through these phases, defense, stability, reset, onto offense. Today, I'll be going over tools. We will share those tools with you, but I will also ask you, if you don't already, have yourself a piece of paper, have yourself a pen. I may just give you small little 10, 15-second sprints in which I want you to write things down that you can come back to, or you can stay engaged with where we're going through this presentation in a way that you can take action on what we're talking about. So when we get to the end, if you need more help, I'll certainly tell you more, how you can stay connected and how you can find our workshops, or at a minimum, PetraCoach.com with the information. So there is a email address, info@PetraCoach.com, which will allow you to connect with us. And then PetraCoach.com specifically has its own COVID-19 page. And within that page, you can find additional tools, and we make these available to the public to go use those tools in a way to make you better. So before we can get started to understand where we're going in the future, we have to assess where we are today. Now, in our work, currently we work with over 100 companies. Over the course of time, over the last 6 to 7 years, we've worked with somewhere around 400 companies, and we've had over 2,500 strategic planning sessions. So basically we start with where you are, where you'd like to go, and then how do we fill in the gap, both short, mid, and long term, in a way that we can tackle the opportunities that's going to allow us to be successful. I will tell you the theme of today is going to be more geared towards the current. So for example, when working with DataFax and working with Daphne's company, several times when we're together, we were planning for a 90-day quarter, or we were planning for annual targets. Today, we're doing adaptive plannings with companies focusing on 30 days, 60 days, and rarely are we going beyond 90 days. And if any of you watch the news, I think we can all agree that a day feels like a week feels like a month, and a month feels like a year. So if we start setting plannings out into the very distant future, we'll find that we probably will correct ourselves over and over. So where are we? What does your battlefield look like? Many of you are familiar with, we go back to just sometimes simple, practical, and actionable tools. In this case, just nothing any more simple than a SWOT exercise. So with that being said, for those of you who have a pen and have a piece of paper, I'm just going to ask you just to quickly, we don't have to share, but to quickly write down 2 to 3 strengths that you have in your business. 2 to 3 strengths that you have in your business. And give you a second to write those down. Now, some of you may have had only 1, some of you may have had 2, some of you may have had as many as 3 to 5. But how you approach doing the SWOT, and again, think about this SWOT exercise, think about it in a 30-day or a 60-day time period. Because what you're going to want to do, you're going to want to take a note of this, whatever it is about the strengths in your business, then you're going to have to ask yourself, what are you going to do coming out of this crisis to protect those strengths? What are you going to do to protect those strengths? If it is your people, and you applied with Susan or some other great bank to get payroll protection program, and you're going to keep your people gainfully employed, then what is it about those people that are a strength, and what are you going to do to protect that strength? So that's how you would focus on your strengths. Now let's go to weaknesses. Now, you may have gone into this crisis with only very few weaknesses, but coming out, you may have some exposure. You may not have had protocols around disinfecting the building. You may not have had perfect human resource policies and procedures. You may not have been up to date on the latest Family Medical Leave Act. You may not have had facilities that were well suited for the new normal that we're going to be approached. So as I'm talking through this, take a moment to write down what are those weaknesses that you see. And again, I know I'm only giving you a little bit of time. I just want you to think about the weaknesses. And in this case, what are you going to do to remove those weaknesses? Let's talk about opportunities. So again, those that move through defense and stability quickly to reset and offense are going to be those that are focused and working opportunistically. Now, when I say opportunities, I don't necessarily talk about in an entrepreneurial world where we're chasing a shiny object. What are those opportunities of those things we need to take advantage of? Do we need to take advantage of additional bank funding? Do we need to take advantage of pivoting our business, going to look at a different way for business? Do we need to switch to a virtual sales platform because we can no longer get back in front of people? This one's going to be much deeper, and we won't resolve this today. But again, it's those companies that going back from reset, turning offense, that can identify new opportunities and how they're going to serve those existing customers they have today, but yet also make themselves appealing to those newer customers they're going to face tomorrow, are going to be those that are more successful. Now, many of us, or many of you, may just be thinking, gosh, I wish I could just close my eyes 30 to 45 days from now. We'll wake back up and things will go back to the way they were. And some of you may not have invested a lot of time yet because of the defense and stability phases in a way that you've thought much about what things are going to be. I'll give you one brief example and we can talk about later. Some of you are dependent on suppliers to supply you with the raw materials or goods that you ultimately pass on to your end customers. In some cases, you are dependent on a single supplier for that. Let's just say, for example, we go back to work on May 1st. What happens on May 1st? You sit down, you call your supplier, and let's just say you're installing Windows, and you said, okay, hey, by the way, we're back up and running. I've got $100,000 worth of work in the backlog. Send me, X number of Windows. Are you prepared for when that person on the other end says, we're currently still shut down? We had 12 of our associates that have COVID and we're not able to ship any Windows right now. So we need to be thinking about opportunities, which ultimately leads to the next, which is certainly, what are your threats? And so for opportunities, what are those things if we took advantage of? Either we stay or get back to where we were, or we could wildly exceed our goals by making a pivot. Think about the liquor and whiskey manufacturers that pivoted to hand sanitizer. Think about the restaurants that switched to delivery. Think about alcohol at a drive-through in a restaurant. So we have to think of those things until we can get back to some normalcy about what we need to do to take advantage of new opportunities, but also take advantage of continue our existing business. This on threats. So think about a threat in the following way. What are those things that left unattended to would cause you to dramatically miss your goals, could possibly cause a reduction in business up to a magnitude of 50% or more, or left unattended to, could actually shut you down? Now, I'm not a doom and gloom guy. I'm very much an optimistic person. I think we're going to be all okay. However, there are certain things that you have in your business that you would classify as a threat, that if we don't reduce the risk associated with a known threat right here, right now, we could find ourselves in a really tough situation. So be thinking about those threats. Some of those were presented upfront and very quickly as a result of a month ago when we went into this crisis situation with the national stay-at-home orders. So threats will be those things that, left unattended to, could cause you to miss your goals or possibly shut down. So anything that was previously thought to be impossible is now possible. And I'm going to move through defense and stability quick, but I'm going to share some of those things. If you have not successfully gotten all the way through defense, I'm going to share some tips and tricks on things that you can be doing to make sure you're doing your best in the 4 stages. So this one, obviously, that at some point we had a defense system for mice, right? Pretty simple. But let's go into some of the work that we do with, we call our clients members. But I want you to be thinking about scenario planning. And again, I'll share this worksheet or this adaptive crisis checklist with you after this session today. But I'm going to put a few things out there you may not have already thought about that you should be thinking about, because the challenge is real. So for an example, how many of you, and I can't see the audience, which is, virtual world is great. Sometimes it's best to be able to read the audience. But do you know your cash break-even point? Do you know what changes that you would implement if you suffered a 20 to 50% drop in revenue, or possibly more? Have you ran through the scenarios that says at what level do you have to make changes and what changes need to be made? And I would tell you, take a very conservative mindset to this and think all the way down to major reductions in your business and all the way down to the chess pieces that you would have to move to stay in a good place, with hopes that you never have to use those. But make it where if you get it right, when it comes time to make that decision, you feel like you have been there several times and it's not running around, in a scurry of activity, determining what you need to do. And I mentioned, what is the impact on inventory and supply chain? Do we have enough supplies in-house? Do we have enough backup vendors if we need them? What if government regulations come along and we don't open up the economy on May 1st and we don't open up on May 15th, or possibly some areas which are hot spots get opened up later than others? Have your plan ready as if you were to open up tomorrow, and then be able to adjust it so when the green light turns on. We also know that when it comes time to start back this economy and it comes time to start back your business, you don't want to walk in just a cold start. You want to have laid your plan out, thinking of all the things that you could think about that need to get done. So it's a natural event for your team and well rehearsed. So are we positioned to communicate with our staff? Have we taken advantage of the government relief packages? Are our people or our vendors or our customers impacted by COVID-19? So for an example, you may do work at people's houses. They may not let you in when we initially start back. Do we have a public relations plan? What do we do if we get an associate with COVID-19? How do we relay that to the rest of the workforce? So those are just a few of the examples of running through a scenario analysis that allows you to stay on top of all the things that could happen in the business in a way that you can develop your restart plan. So in a defense mode, we certainly went to the health, safety, and well-being of our people. We quickly moved to the work from home situation with technology. We all know that now there's security risks that we may not have addressed just getting people up and running at home. We've had to switch to wartime leadership styles, which is very much candor and transparency, sometimes different than we've ever had to lead before. So that's new. We're going to talk about conserving cash the right way. We're going to talk a bit about how to take advantage of what's out there for your benefit that helps you keep the business going. And then working through each of those pieces, what takes priority in order that we know what to go do. So I'm going to switch to this wartime leadership. Sometimes we have to just be, it's not about being popular. It could be being unpopular, but we have to tell it like it is. We don't need to tell our people something that always, we want them to feel good. We want our culture to be strong, but we also want to look them in the eye and tell them exactly what's going on. We have to stay out in front and move quickly. And in many cases, we have to minimize debate and consensus. We run by the rule of, if you're 80% consensus, keep moving. And sometimes if you're in that 20% that it's not exactly what you would do, then maybe you'll be in the 80% next time. Let's talk about cash, the lifeblood of the business. We tell people to really obsess over cash. Reduce the cost, but invest where needed. Don't just shut down, say no to everything, only to realize you actually needed that thing you shut down to. Also look at situations where you may have gotten some payroll protection and the business is going to make it through the next 8 weeks. When I say make it through, keep your people employed, but the work may not all be there. You may be able to invest in those people's personal growth and development at a time when work is slow. Write standard operating procedures, go work on the projects you didn't have time to. There's so many things you can do. So manage the cash in and go after all the resources. I have found that in today's times, leading up to this crisis, that accounting was often looked at as something that was nice to have, but it wasn't always looked at as a have to have. And oftentimes we pushed that down and we kept good books, but we didn't use accounting as a competitive offensive weapon. Now we have to get cash protocols and cash routines in place that allow us to responsibly run the business. A few of the examples here is making sure the CEO gets a daily cash report. What went out? What came in? What are those receivable balances? What are we doing to make sure we manage those? How are we accelerating cash in? How are we going about our billing routines? Can we speed up billing? Can we move from monthly billing to twice a month billing, to weekly billing, to daily billing? How do we speed up the cash cycle? And then we're taking advantage also too of how we pay for the things we need to pay for and get as long a terms as we can, and then how to shorten the receivables coming in. So getting everyone in the same routine that cash is king and making sure we're paying attention to our cash. And again, AR speed up, AP slow down, and make sure you're keeping great relationships and talking to your banks often. When they have things that are available, make sure you're first in line. Make sure you're keeping them up to date. All the banks that we're talking to will tell you that if you keep us, Susie, maybe you can speak this after the session here, but as long as you keep your banks in the know and they don't get surprised, they'll still figure it out. But stay in front with the information so they're not surprised when you need them most. And this is a checklist, again, I can share with you after this, just little tricks around calling every client 5 days before an invoice is due. And by the way, using your most charming and disarming personality you have. Sometimes that when you get payment, you might want to send a lottery ticket or something fun along the way. Anything that you can do to build relationships with those who are paying you in a way that puts you to the top of the list, even if it's knowing what their dog's name is or their kid that's graduating from high school or college, whatever that works. Just keep a good relationship with those that are paying you. You can also ask those people that you are having to pay, can you get your terms pushed out? Last night, in paying my mom's rent, it said I could go to chase.com/payment center or something like that and negotiate a deferral of the payment to a future date. So I'll share this after the presentation is over. Now, this slide comes across not as intended, but there may be a situation in which that we have a reduction in the workforce moving forward. Now, I will also say this as a coach, and I believe this from the heart. No one ever likes to have to let someone go. I also will tell you it's inexcusable to release people that you say, oh, they were C players anyway, and as a result of this crisis, we're going to go ahead and let them go. What I would challenge you, if you have C players that basically aren't a good fit culturally or not getting the work done, it is your responsibility to have already allowed that person or set that person free to go be successful the next place. Because sometimes if they're not a fit in your environment, they may be an A player in someone else's environment. But you may have to go through, as you talk about a reduction in your business, if you have to get to the point where you have to set folks free, then you're going to have to already figure out, where are we going to have to make the cuts? Now, as a former CEO, there's several times when I get in situations like this, I may have made the cut and also told that person, here's 3 places you can go call, and they're looking for someone in this particular role. And nothing feels any better than when you have to let someone go, that you quickly transition them into their new place of employment in a way that they don't suffer any downturn as a result. Let's talk about stabilize. Certainly no bubbles, but 2 thumbs up there. So sinking, but 2 thumbs up, no bubbles coming to the top. So we'll stabilize quickly. How are we telling our companies going through the stabilization process? The companies we work with are having daily huddles. They're bringing together people through technology platforms, including Zoom video. And in our case, we have an 8:33 in the morning huddle, and then we wrap our day up at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So we've increased the communication. We're bringing people together in the virtual world, and we are certainly using technology to make sure that we're using video capabilities where we can still look in the eyes of our people and make sure they're okay. We're using visual dashboards where we can keep our key performance indicators and metrics in a way to measure progress and success. We've increased the one-on-ones that we're having with our people to make sure that we understand that they're doing okay. These are trying times, obviously beyond just the work. Emotionally, these are trying times, not just for you and your work, it's you and your family, your children. We're all impacted by this crisis. So use social media on your website, and then build that forecast and plan at the various areas of reduction or increase we may be adding back. We use a platform called aligntoday.com. For the folks at Waddell & Associates or with DataFacts, you'll recognize this, but this is just our dashboard where we can keep track of how we're doing. Let's talk about emotional response to negative change. I don't know about you, but every day is an emotional roller coaster. It starts off with sometimes good news. By the end of the day, there's bad news. There's sometimes it's good news, bad news, good news, bad news. Get to the end of the day, and you hope you end up on a high note. But people don't necessarily like change, but we're constantly going through change. And we're going to have to encourage our teams to continue to go through change because we don't know when or how or what the new normal looks like. So this is just briefly around the huddles that we've had. And so video conferencing capabilities, use a tool, set up your structure, go in order. The leaders of the business lead with the update around COVID-19 and how it's impacting families or the business. And then finish up with a positive note on the back end of things that are going well. So on my screen now just simply gives some structure. Again, we'll share these tools with you about how to have daily huddles and how to work through in a way that we make this simple for our teams. So talk about customer and vendor ideas. For those of you who read, there's a book by John DeJulius called The Relationship Economy. And this Ford principle is really just simply when talking with associates or customers or vendors, get to know them a little better. You'll find that in today's times that people are reaching out to people they ordinarily have not had time to in the past, and people are leaning on each other unlike never before. And it's those that continue to reach out with each other and build those relationships that will be those that bond together coming out of the backside of this. So, ask people about their family, again, learn about their occupation, what do you do for recreation, and then coming out of this, dreams seem so far away. We like to get to reality first, but find out what it is that inspire those people, get to know a little more about them, and then when we return back to the age of no handshakes, no hugs, and all those things that just really make me cringe being a Southern boy by nature, we'll still have ways to connect with people in a meaningful way that allows us to have great relationships. A little bit about what we have done during this time. Our company was probably 90% face-to-face business, 10% virtual. About early March, when all this set forth, we pivoted in a matter of 24 to 36 hours to a virtual platform in which all of our engagements at the current time are virtual. And in fact, where I told you 90-10 were personal to virtual, I would say even when we go back, we'll probably be more like 50-50 virtual versus in person. So we, like many other people on this phone today, set up a COVID-19 resource center. And so you can go to petracoach.com/COVID-19, and you'll see our resource center. And so what we determined was that we'll move to a virtual platform, but we bring together Petra forum groups, and we bring together information and speakers to those that we serve in a way that allowed us to pivot. And I know many of you have done the same, and whenever people mention visit our COVID page, I go visit yours as well. So please feel free to go to ours and share that on your pages. So this stabilized phase, talking about where you are, build those models, both financial and those plans, which allow you to know what to do, what are those levers to pull when you get to certain areas of growth or reduction in your new world. So if many of you, as Susan said, the bank is an essential business. If any of you need to qualify for an essential business, fill out the paperwork. I have my paperwork in my bag today. So I'm actually in the office. I drove to the office. I did not get pulled over. But if I do, I have a letter that states that we're an essential business. Let's go to the reset phase. And this is where we want to push hard. So do we want to start completely over? Certainly, let's hope not. But let's go back to normal business practices. When you start back, pick a target, pick a date. Even if it's the wrong target, even if it might be the wrong date, pick something and start moving in the direction of a target. Make sure you're connected with your customers. Don't tell them what they need. Listen to what they tell you they are needing. What is in demand? Be doing your research about the magnitude of your offerings, and are they still in high demand? And be aware of what you need to change in an effort to remain viable, serving your existing customers and serving the market that you serve. Who could be your new customer? What is it that you do that may be valuable to others? And of course, now this is an opportunity of a lifetime. And for those of you, some of which I know on this phone are entrepreneurial in mindset, they love to chase shiny new objects, but not at the expense of running the business responsibly that gets it back to the new norm. I'm not going to turn into an economist here. We don't know if we're going to have a shallow V recovery, a deep V recovery, a W recovery, or an L recovery. But we do know that we're going to face some fairly startling numbers in Q2 as this economy comes back and starts to correct itself. We have to build the plans with anticipation. I am certain that we will come back, but we have to be prepared to get through this tough little dip in an effort to get to a higher new outcome on the backside. So during this reset phase, and we're talking about getting to know your customers and your employees, at a minimum, when you are talking to your customers, I would like for you to follow what's called 4Q questions. And it's as simple as the following. Call them up. How are you doing? What's going on in your industry or in your business? How are we doing? And then the last question is certainly, how can we be most helpful right now? It's no time to be ambulance chasing, running along, taking advantage of people's misfortunes. However, I will also say this. All of us have a skill or a need or a challenge that we resolve through our business models. You do not have to apologize for offering up something that helps another company during this crisis. Now, when the person who keeps emailing me about coming to my house and measuring me up for tailored clothing, I'm not quite sure it's the perfect time for me to be focused about custom suits and things like that. I do appreciate the interest this person has with me, but we want to be respectful about what those needs are and making sure that if we're calling to truly help and we have something that does help, it's done in a very genuine and respectful way that shows that person how do we get together to a higher level outcome. So during this reset, we talked about daily huddles, report the information to the executive team daily, have a customer service task force to create solutions and opportunities, make sure you close the loop with the client. Sometimes we don't have the answer, but we need to go find the answer quickly. Again, we talked about SWOT. We talked about, do we need to pivot? And what I mean by pivot is it what you currently did going into this crisis, is it still viable, or do you need to sit down and be thinking about what you need to do coming out of this to make sure that your business thrives in the new normal? And we talked earlier about what are those businesses that are thriving, and we can send you information of those businesses that are taking off. Zoom video platform you're currently on today has seen an enormous rise in volume. In fact, the ownership team about 2 weeks ago took $50 million out of the market based on their stock going from $50 to something like $160. So virtual communications here, virtual selling platforms and your capability to sell virtual is here. Online streaming, we've seen box office movies brought to your home. There's no shortage of, even now we're seeing, have a customer or a member that's in the hotel services industry. Their business has been severely disrupted. They're now able to get masks, and they're going to have, now you're seeing fashionable masks, NCAA licensing, NFL licensing, NBA, etc. So now masks are becoming a fashion statement, and they have pivoted with the same people that would normally have been making window treatments or shears for inside hotel rooms. Those same people can now make scarves or masks, and they have intentions in doing so. So when you say don't think you didn't know, but the whole time you knew that you needed to change, can't see a show of hands, but I'm sure that we have people with the economy running full steam like it was running. Everything felt nice and comfortable. You knew that it wouldn't last forever, and you knew you possibly needed to change. Now all of a sudden, guess what? We all have to change. So pain creates new opportunity. What is the next pain point? Businesses are set up to solve problems. What problem is it that you need to be solving for your customers or your new customers? And who do you become now? Who will you become now? And this is something where you're going to want to get your leadership teams together to talk about who will we be and who should we be to be viable. Let's talk about offense. This is the fun part, certainly. How do we break through? Do we stay home and do nothing? Answer is no. So what's the business look like? What will you be offering? Who is a new customer? Marketing is cheap. Hiring is easy. And by the way, hiring is going to be easier because we were in a nation that was extremely low unemployment. And all of a sudden, we're already seeing this. We actually had, going into this, an opening for our vice president of sales. We are flooded with those candidates who are looking for new opportunities as a result of this crisis. So for those of you who felt like you couldn't hire, you're going to be able to hire much more easily than you did in the past. And again, marketing is cheap, but marketing must be innovative in a way that you're still reaching the market. I would also tell you, don't stop marketing, and don't stop making yourself visible to the public in a way that they know that you're still there. And then train like you've never trained before of your workforce. So who has the money? There's money out there. And in fact, $350 billion, which has almost been used up in round one, hopefully followed by at least another $250 billion as part of the $2 trillion. There's money there, unlike never before. And those who are able to get their access to money and able to utilize this money in a way to keep things as stable as they can during this time, again, will be those who come out on top. What are some of the things you can do in regards to coming out of this and selling and generating revenue? Make sure you understand who your ideal core customer is. Your ideal core customer, by definition, real person with wants, needs, and fears, who's willing to pay you what you charge for the service or product that you have because they see value in what you do. So go put a list of who are those dream clients. What are those industries that you serve that are still thriving? It's not a situation where every industry is impacted in a way. And in fact, looking at the roster coming in today, there's some places like a UPS or a FedEx or an Amazon or local delivery and courier services that are thriving in today's economy. If you have people on that list that you serve that are thriving, how can you do a better job of serving them? Who are those customers you haven't served in the past that may be an opportunity to serve now? But use LinkedIn to connect with the CEO or your point of contact. And so also ask people to jump on the phone, have a 15-minute conversation, and use the opportunity to connect, not necessarily to sell. People have time on their hands. They're not traveling, so they're at home. And some of the extroverts on the phone that we had here certainly said extroverts are losing their mind. They want to talk to people. So find those extroverts in your life and the member or customer base you serve and go talk to those folks. It may not be the time to some people to be marketing yachts. Maybe it's not the time to be buying a yacht. Hopefully there'll be time soon to do so. If you think about marketing, I said do not turn off marketing. If we go back to the Great Depression of the 30s, I know that's been a long time ago, but most of you have heard this story where Kellogg's and Post were together. Post basically cut advertising. Kellogg's came out with Snap, Crackle, and Pop. And by the way, they took market share and they never looked back. So don't just think about grabbing the levers and shutting down. Be thinking about where you can lean into marketing in a way that you can promote the things that you do in a way to best serve the market or open the market up. So again, we've covered this. You will be able to find talent like no other time. So look for those opportunities to grow your business and fill in with talent. And we talked about training and certifications. Find those ways to develop your people personally and professionally. And if you've not done a good job at it in the past, pick yourself up, brush yourself off, and realize that if you wrote down that one of your strengths are people, what is it about those people and what are you going to do to help them be successful? And back to those projects you never had dreamed of, maybe you dreamed of them, you put them on the shelf, go dust those off and figure out how to get some work done on those. So change is inevitable, growth is optional. Those that can move through defense to stability, into the reset phase, and on to offense will be those who experience growth in this time. And I will tell you with some of the disappeared. Are we still there?
Yes, Marshall, we can still see you.
Oh, okay. I just fell off of my screen. So I'm sorry. Growth is inevitable. Change is inevitable. Growth is optional. And make sure you're taking advantage of that growth. So again, PetraCoach.com. There's the COVID-19 page. Go visit that page. See what resources we can provide you. Make sure you have goals. Make sure you set a plan. Make sure you do the work. We do have, actually this afternoon, for those of you who are looking for something to do in a few minutes, there's a CARES Act SBA workshop today that'll give you a little bit of information. We're starting to move through how to apply for that and starting to move towards how do you use the money, how do you be responsible for the record keeping so that when the forgiveness period is over, that we'll be able to move into that phase where they're being responsible for those funds so that you get forgiveness of that. And then our pivot workshops, i.e. around defense, stability, reset, and offense, we have one on the 21st, but there'll be several more of those coming up as well. You can, for those of you who want to reach out, Vitamin B for Business is one of the books we have in regards to having those daily coaching pieces for those that are moving forward in leadership to give you best practices of how to be a better leader. And then here we have the PetraCoach.com. It's we call it the vault, and inside of that vault are several exercises, worksheets, and those things that you can go do this work on your own, or you can ask us to help, and we're able to help as well. So we'll say if it's important, you'll find a way. And if it's not, you'll find an excuse. Daphne, you know this well, do or do not. There is no try. And that's what I have today. I've gotten them 2 minutes over where I thought I would finish, so I apologize for that. I would like to open it up for any questions, and I would like to get some help either from Amy or from Lainey in regards to questions because I cannot see those.
Sure. If anyone would like to ask any questions, feel free to go on and type them in our Q&A box, which should be on your screen. And as we're waiting for those, thank you again to our sponsor, Independent Bank, and again to Waddell & Associates for hosting us. And our next Lunch in the Know will be next Tuesday, April 21st, when David Waddell and his team will discuss how to prepare for the second half of 2020. And Marshall, it looks like Everyone is just wanting to say thank you and that this was so great and they appreciate you. People are saying they want to have you back, and we will definitely invite you back. And I think we can conclude for the day. Do you have any last words of wisdom for us?
Well, I would tell you that, again, it's those that can clear their head and move forward in this environment that are going to be those that come out strong. I really do believe that our economy was so strong going into this that we're going to come out strong, and we're going to come out closer together as a nation and as a community. My parents lived in Memphis at one point, and I've worked with several Memphis businesses, and there's a very special place in my heart for Memphis, and specifically for Memphis. I want to make sure that we at PETRA Coach, and me myself, I want to do everything possible so that Memphis remains the great place it is, and that the businesses in Memphis are doing the best they can do to come out of this as if nothing ever happened. So I appreciate the opportunity. I would rather be there in person, as we know technology has challenges, but thank you so much. And I'm more than willing to come back again if you'd like to have me back. You
Absolutely.
just tell me the
Yes.
topic you want, and we'll go from there.
We definitely want you back. One quick question. You mentioned that you would share some of your worksheets. We'll get those from you and we will email them out to our attendees, if that's okay with you, Marshall.
That's fine. And again, they can go to info@petracoach.com for worksheets, workshops, or if those that are interested in coaching services, just do that or reach out, Amy, directly to me, and I can help you out.
Fantastic. And that concludes our first Lunch in the Know live on the webinar. Thanks so much to Independent Bank, Waddell & Associates for hosting us. And Marshall, Daphne Large, y'all have been fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.